Hi there, folks. Welcome to the program. This, of course, is Stinchfield, the podcast. I'm calling this podcast the tale of two interviews. One interview shows you why Kamala Harris is losing. The other interview shows you why President Trump is winning. Both were fascinating to watch. Both were entertaining to watch. I'm going to go through all of them. There's a moment in President Trump's interview with this Bloomberg global elitist who did it that was the moment that told me President Trump is going to win. And it wasn't what President Trump said. It wasn't the question. It's how the crowd reacted. So we're going to play that in the program today. But before we get to that, we have got to go through this Kamala Harris, Brett Bair interview. And I'm asking myself, am I biased? Because I think Brett Bair did a fabulous job. And then I listen to those on the left thinking that Kamala Harris somehow killed it. I think this interview is disastrous for her. And anyone with common sense will tell you that all she did was talk about Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. She didn't lay out any policies because she can't. She can't answer questions because she doesn't want you to know the answers to them. So we're going to go through a lot of the interviews with Brett Bair. There was a lot of talking over each other, which, you know, I guess if I was on the left and watching someone interview President Trump talking over, I say, oh, that was rude. But, you know, Brett Bair was really just trying to rein her in, keep her on focus, which is nearly impossible to do with somebody like that. All right. Before we start the program, folks, I want to tell you about my friends over at EnergizedHealth.com. I want you to go to EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. This is literally about cellular hydration, getting hydrated at a cellular level. So at 55 years old, you can start the process of looking like this. All right. This is not just a diet plan. This is a full total body program, mind, body, soul. It is about coaching that's there for you. It is about daily motivational videos there for you. It's about working your diet where you still eat most of the same things, just changing up how you eat them. It's about hydration, and it is about changing your life. I have energy like I've never had before. I lost 15 pounds in 3 weeks on this program. 88 days of a life-changing transformation. I got a couple weeks left, and I feel the best I have ever felt. Skin is clearer. I just feel fabulous. All right. EnergizedHealth.com/Grant. It's about cellular hydration. To find out what that is, go to EnergizedHealth.com. All right, folks. With that, let's get this show 100% started.
Uncensored and unapologetic. This is Stinchfield. Here's your host, Grant Stinchfield.
All right, welcome, everybody. So I don't know if you got to watch much of this Kamala Harris, Brett Bair interview last night. I think it was a huge mistake for Kamala Harris to go to Fox News. Now, I think it's a huge mistake for Kamala Harris to be doing any interviews. Now, what I mean by this when I say this is if you're running her campaign, it's just too dangerous to put her in front of the media, especially a media that I'm not even going to call Brett Bair hostile. Every question he asked was legitimately a fair question. Explain to me the situation on the border. When did you understand or know that Joe Biden had cognitive issues? You said Iran is our greatest threat. Why Iran, not China? These are all legitimate questions. They don't have to be hostile. But to Kamala Harris, they're hostile because she cannot answer them. Either she doesn't know the answer or she's hiding the answer. And I think it's a little bit of both there. So with that, I'm telling you, Kamala Harris continues to do herself a disservice every time she gets in front of the American people. She does the American people a service by doing these interviews because we can at least see that she is totally incompetent and you don't just have to believe me. Okay? So with that, let's roll the first clip. This is on immigration. Brett Bair comes right out of the box with Kamala Harris.
How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but
right
do you,
now,
just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay, the point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you.
So this starts it off right off the beginning of what happens during this interview. There's a lot of talking over each other, but she wasn't getting to the question. She didn't answer the question. What is the number? I actually believe it's not 2.5, 3 million. I actually believe it's 15 to 20 million illegals that have come across our borders. She is the border czar. Here we go.
You came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So before I get to the end of that, that's a total lie. So here's what I did. I typed in H.R. 1. That's House of Representatives, Bill number 1 in 2021. What was that bill? It had nothing to do with immigration. Go figure, the first bill they introduced is about increasing mail-in voting and what they called election integrity, which was basically an operation to expand the ability for people to mail their ballots in. It had nothing to do with immigration. So I don't know what you're talking about. The first bill that they put up in the House of Representatives was this immigration bill. It wasn't. And the immigration bill was an amnesty bill. It wasn't a border security bill.
It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the.
Yes, ma'am. May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You
please.
had the White House and the House and the Senate,
and they didn't bring up that bill. I'm in the middle of responding to the point you're raising,
okay.
And I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things.
A number of things that have literally destroyed our country. So she didn't answer the question about how many. She didn't answer the question, does she regret removing Remain in Mexico? You know, if she really wanted to be smart about it, if I was in her campaign, I'd say, you know what, lay it on Joe Biden. Say you stood in the Oval Office and you said, you know what, I don't think we should remove Remain in Mexico, and Joe Biden did it. Just throw him under the bus. You threw him under the bus already. Why wouldn't you do it now? But no, they don't, because they pander to the radicals on the left that want an open border society. And this isn't just radicals on the left here. These are radicals across the globe. These are the globalists that are pulling Barack Obama's strings, Joe Biden's strings, Kamala Harris's strings. It all feeds through Barack. But believe me, the globalists are the ones that are pulling these strings. They're the ones that don't want borders. They're the ones that want to take away American sovereignty. And Kamala Harris is working to carry out that plan. There is no doubt in my mind that is exactly what is going on here. So Brett Bair continued with immigration.
Jocelyn Nungari, Rachel Morin, Laken Riley, they are young women who were brutally assaulted and killed by some of the men who were released at the beginning of the administration, well before a negotiated bipartisan bill. Former President Clinton actually referred to Laken Riley Sunday, campaigning for you in Georgia, saying if those men had been properly vetted, Laken Riley probably would not have been killed. So if it wouldn't have happened, this is well before any negotiation. This is well before Donald Trump got involved in the politics. This is a specific policy decision by your administration to release these men into the country. So what I'm saying to you, do you owe
Brett,
those families an apology?
Let me just say, first of all, those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that.
They're not being vetted. I don't need to tell all of you that. You know it. This CBP One app, I believe, is criminal. So the CBP One app basically was, they realized there's a problem. So in order to decrease the numbers of those flowing across the border illegally, they just said, well, we'll just legalize everybody coming across. We'll make an app. You sign up on the app. You come in through a port of entry. Now you're not crossing illegally, and we let you in. The numbers are the same, but we just call it legal. But it's not legal. This is an end run around Congress. It's an end run around immigration law. Nobody's getting vetted. And now we got people like Jocelyn Nungary and Laken Riley that are dead because of it. And she will not apologize. She will not have any accountability in this.
And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would be 9 months that we would have had more border agents at the border, more support for the folks who are working around the clock trying to hold it all together.
Madam Vice President.
To ensure that no future harm would occur. And this election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares more about fixing a problem, even if it is not to their political advantage in an election, because there was a solution, Brett.
Madam Vice President, it was a policy decision in the early part of your administration.
So Brett Bair deserves kudos for holding her accountable. Look, I will acknowledge that border security has been a problem for decades. The immigration system has been a problem for decades. Now, border security and how you get here legally are two different things. We talked about this before. Process needs to be sped up. We need to make it easy for good people to come here. All of that is true. But border security is pretty simple. You build the wall, you use technology, you arrest people who come over, you deport them right away, you institute remain in Mexico, meaning if you're going to make an asylum claim or going to make a claim to come into the United States for any reason, you got to wait in Mexico while those claims are played out. All of that alone will decrease the flow, as it did under President Trump. So when she says this problem is longstanding, her only problem in that comment is that it wasn't as bad a problem under President Trump. He was on a path to fixing it. The numbers had drastically decreased, and the moment she takes office, the numbers explode. There's no way that she can get around that. And so this is why she does this word salad, mumbo jumbo, talk about everything but facts. And to me, this is why she is incapable of being president of the United States, because she doesn't want to tell her true intentions. They wanted open borders. They wanted to flood the voter rolls with illegals. They want to give ultimately citizenship to all these people so they can have permanent power in the United States. It is that simple. They want to destroy the suburbs. It is that simple. They want inner cities everywhere. So this is what we're up against with the Democrats. The choice to me is very, very, very clear. Here's Angela Marie on the Rumble channel. She can't admit such a huge mistake because she and Joe are responsible for all the horrible crimes committed, and they should be charged for those crimes along with the criminals. Raises a good question. Will President Trump charge them? Will he go after them? Certainly Joe Biden needs to pay for his crimes. My assumption is if Joe Biden was smart, he would pardon himself and his son on the way out the door. Like it or not, that's the only way he's going to protect himself, or ensure at least that he is protected. All right, I'm going to get back to some more of this interview, folks, but I want to tell you about my friends over at ConsumerAdvocatesUSA.com. These guys are great. So these guys, ConsumerAdvocatesUSA.com/Grant, are taking market share away from the big box stores. They're taking market share certainly away from China. CAUSANow.com can provide you with all American-made, non-toxic household products. Everything you need in your house, from toothpaste and deodorant to floor cleaner, dish soap to deodorant, you name it, they have it. All made by one company, family-owned, patriotic company, been around for decades in the United States. So this is about pushing back against China. The more people we sign up with CAUSANow.com, the more business we take away from China and the big box stores, putting the small mom and pops out of business. So here's what you do. Go become a member. Go to causanow.com/Grant. Fill out the form. They'll get right back to you. They'll show you how you get all these products shipped to your door at low prices, non-toxic, American-made. You cannot beat that. Plus, they have beef. No crazy hormones in these beef. All pasture-fed, pasture-grazed beef. Great, great, great products. causanow.com/Grant. Become a member today. All right. Let's keep playing Kamala Harris here. This is her talking about Iran. Okay, now remember, she was asked who is the greatest threat to America. In my opinion, China poses the greatest threat to America. Militarily, I think China poses the greatest threat. After all, it has nuclear weapons, it has a massive army, and it's very strong, fairly well funded, even though the economy is struggling right now. Our economy is so reliant on China that they have great power over us. And let's not forget, they've now inserted chips in our critical infrastructure from our electricity grid. They've bought up farmland. They control much of the meat processing in the United States. China wanted to hand it to us. They would eat our lunch right now. Now, in a military straight-out war, I think the United States still wins. I think we're more capable than they are. But if they used all of their things that they have, from the cyber attacks, the critical infrastructure, the control of our food supply, all of those things, we're in rough, rough shape. So anyway, she doesn't say China. She says Iran, which you think you'd put Russia in front of Iran. Or Iran is a little 2-bit country that maybe is close to nuclear weapons, but doesn't have them yet. Israel's not going to have a problem taking out Iran if that's what it wants to do. But Iran is our biggest threat. Then why are you giving them billions of dollars? Right? If your greatest threat, your greatest enemy is Iran, why are you funding them?
And unwavering.
Critics just say that you either relaxed or failed to enforce sanctions on Iran, allowing all of this money to flow into Iran, like billions.
Let's go back to Donald
profits.
Trump, who pulled out of a deal that would have actually put Iran in check.
The estimates in billions.
It was during Donald Trump's administration that Iran regime, that we had an American military base that was attacked, where American soldiers suffered traumatic brain injuries, and Donald Trump dismissed them as headaches, not to mention how Donald Trump has treated and talked about America's military and military service people, calling them suckers and losers,
Hamas,
has diminished the significance. We're talking over
each other. I apologize.
I would like that we would have a conversation that is grounded in full assessment of the facts.
So she's not talking about facts. This suckers and losers has totally been debunked. Overwhelmingly, the United States military loves President Trump and despises Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And let's not forget, President Trump hit back against Iran, taking out Soleimani, doing moves that no other president has ever done, including cutting off their money supply, lowering the price of oil, which made it nearly impossible for Iran to even function, as it made it impossible for Russia to function as well. He busted their economies. And who built it all back up? Joe Biden. So she's talking about all these lies that have been debunked. Quite frankly, this interview to me is disastrous. But again, her leftist lunatics that support her are going to think she's doing a great job. I promise you, they will. Here's the American Guerrilla Podcast. Other than being stupid, they are lazy. They think they have it in the bag. This is talking about Democrats and those who support Kamala Harris, I guess. I think Kamala Harris has had a very bad 2 weeks. Real bad. I think President Trump has had a real good 2 weeks. The momentum is in President Trump's favor. I see signs of Democrats packing it in. And let me explain this to you. Why would you advise her to go on Fox News? Because you want to recruit Republican voters? You're not going to get Republican voters. Maybe Liz Cheney. There's not a lot of Liz Cheneys out there. So Republicans, even never Trumpers, most of them will hold their nose and vote for President Trump, rather vote for a communist in Kamala Harris. And if they're going to even consider voting for Kamala Harris, they're not real Republicans. And they're certainly not watching Fox News. I don't think. So I don't think she's going to recruit anybody off of Fox News. So then it just becomes a total risk. Maybe they see they're so far down they needed a Hail Mary, or she's being set up from within. And they want to make sure that she doesn't win so Gavin Newsom can come in because they've already realized she's not going to win anyway. So let's set it up for Gavin Newsom. I don't necessarily believe that's the case, but I see signs of that's the case. Do you think she picked Tim Walz? I don't think she did. So then you have to ask yourself, Tim Walz, the biggest goofball in America. You can pick anybody as your vice presidential running mate, and you pick this Richard Simmons, Tim Conway cross? I mean, it makes no sense. You got Bill Clinton saying they would have vetted Laken Riley's killer. She'd be alive today. That's throwing her under the bus over and over again. I'm seeing all these signs. So I don't know. I don't know if they really believe they have it in the bag. I think there are some that do, but I think they're running scared right now, which is why then the cheating starts to become the biggest issue of all. Did you see 53 counties in Michigan? 53 counties in Michigan have more than 100% voter registration. No, wait a second. How do you have more than 100% voter registration? You have a certain amount of voters. If they all registered, that's the max. Well, you could have dead people that are long gone. You can have illegals that have signed up to vote. You can have fake people that have signed up to vote. What is going on? You shouldn't have more than 100% voter registration, and 53 counties in Michigan, a very important state, does. This is craziness. All right, let's continue her comments here.
Which includes, I think this interview is supposed to be about the choices that your viewers should be presented about this election, and the contrast is important.
Yes, ma'am.
And on the subject of Iran, I am offering what should be an important contrast that is presented for folks to make a decision that they feel.
Who look at what the administration did and say and think differently. Madam Vice President, they're wrapping me very hard here. I hope you got to say what you wanted to say about Donald Trump. There are a lot of things.
There's more to say. I have much more to say.
There are a lot of things that people want to learn about you and your policies, and that's why I
invite everyone to go to Kamala Harris.
All right, so she doesn't talk about the policies at all. Now, I put that out of order because I wanted to talk about Iran early on in this. Here, though, is where she doubles down on President Trump is the enemy within. Okay? None of your business on the Rumble channel. The left has perfected projection. They accuse the other side of what they themselves are guilty of. Well, isn't that the truth? When they start telling you that President Trump's going to arrest his political foes, what they mean is they're arresting their political foes. Look at what they've done to President Trump. Over and over again, all they do is project. All right, this is her. You want to talk about the enemy within? It's not President Trump. It's Biden and Harris.
It's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
We asked that question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you,
that was the question that we asked him.
He didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it.
Oh, where's my pearls? Lock them all up. What are you doing to him? Joe Biden can't handle the criticism. You can't handle the criticism. So you sick your Justice Department on President Trump. This is the reality of the situation. So, yes, thank you that None Your Business is talking about projection. This is it. This is it right here. So, again, it's all lies, nothing about policy. He keeps asking her about policy. She brings everything back. Trump, 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 Trump. Does it ever end about President Trump? No. I want to know what this woman is going to do for America besides destroy it. She has nothing for me.
Of Brett.
More than
People
70% of people tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But
people
you're the
have
lever of
become.
power.
But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me.
Oh, my Lord. You know, it's getting really old to listen to this cackling hen spew nonsense. The last decade, last I checked, who was in charge over the last decade? 6 of 10 years has been run by Democrats. 4 years, 4 of our best years, except for COVID, was under President Trump. The best years, indisputable, under President Trump. You had Barack Obama and you had Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Both of them screwed everything up. Does anyone remember what happened when Barack Obama took office in 2008? We literally went into a massive recession. Nobody talks about this. Barack Obama's first 4 years, we spent trying to navigate a recession the likes of the 1920s. It was bad. I worked in TV. Who do you think the advertisers are for local television? Furniture stores and car dealerships. No one was doing any business. It was disastrous. And so the last 10 years have been Democrats in control. And she knows this. She 100% knows this. But I'm not sure that she really cares. All right, let me tell you folks about my friends over at Colonial Metals. This company is so great when it comes to what you need to do to secure your financial future. This is about taking the steps necessary to protect your portfolio. Gold has stood the test of time when it comes to a hedge against chaos, when it comes to a hedge against inflation, which we're still seeing right now. It is a tangible commodity. It is gold you can hold. And when you look at the chart from the beginning of time, gold has just continued to go up. So here's what I would offer up. Call them at 800-458-7356, 800-458-7356, or just log on and get your free gold guide. freegoldguide.com/Grant. That's the easiest way. freegoldguide.com/Grant. And think about this. China is buying up gold in record numbers. The world is waging war on the U.S. dollar. And I'm going to play some of President Trump here that will show you why President Trump is going to fight back against the U.S. dollar. But buying gold, to me, in my mind, seems like a great idea when you are looking to protect yourself against all of these negativities. Colonial Metals can help. freegoldguide.com/Grant. Up to $7,500 in free silver. Ask them about that, depending on your investment. freegoldguide.com/Grant. All right, I want to finish up with Kamala Harris, and then we are going to go to President Trump with Bloomberg, which was literally fabulous when it came to Bloomberg. Here's the rest of Kamala Harris.
He's
He is
unstable.
unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable?
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this.
And,
you told
we
many
should all be
interviewers
concerned
that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
So why are you there then? See, that would be my question to you. So if you can't admit that there was a moment where you realized Joe Biden's cognitive abilities were failing him, then why are you there? Because if he's still sound and sharp as a tack, it doesn't make any sense why he'd step down. So Joe Biden decided to step down. If his cognitive abilities are still there, why would he step down? Why didn't you support him? See, this doesn't match up. At some point, Kamala Harris had to say Joe Biden is a disaster. I think that point was when she first met him probably 6 years ago.
I understand.
And
but,
Donald Trump
But
is,
you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office.
All right, I got enough of her. I mean, seriously, right? I mean, this to me shows you everything you need to know about why she's not capable of being president of the United States. She did not navigate that interview well at all. She was all over the map, and it all came down to one thing. It all came down to this.
Democrats voted.
Donald Trump, 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 and Donald Trump, Donald Trump.
President Biden at a fundraiser debate stage.
Let's go back to Donald
profits.
Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump.
If it was a drinking game, you would have been drunk in the first 5 minutes. If you had to take a shot every time she says Donald Trump, I mean, my Lord. You'd never get through the entire interview. You'd be lying on the floor puking. So that's Kamala Harris there. Now, compare that interview to what I believe was a master class in how to deal with a combative media. Even if you want to give Kamala Harris the benefit of the doubt that Brett Bair was combative because he was simply asking tough questions. And not even tough questions. They were just legitimate questions. I think any campaign staffer would have written down those questions. Be prepared for this, and she wasn't. President Trump goes with this global elitist, this Bloomberg guy, Mickleswaith or whatever the heck his name is. He goes with him, and this guy is 100% combative, to say the least. What is this guy's name? Yeah, Micah Swith or something. I don't know. He's well known among global elitists. I'll call him the Bloomberg guy. I could really care less what his name is, but he's an elitist. He wasn't prepared for running into the likes of President Trump. See, President Trump knows why he believes in the things he does. He has a plan. You can agree with the plan or not agree with the plan, but President Trump has a plan, unlike Kamala Harris.
If a country tells me, sir, we like you very much, but we're going to no longer adhere to being in the reserve currency. We're not going to salute the dollar anymore. I'll say that's okay. And you're going to pay a 100% tariff on everything you sell into the United States. And we love your product. I hope you sell a lot of it into the United States, but you're going to pay 100% tariff. He will then follow it up by saying, sir, it would be an honor to stay with the reserve currency. That will be like just playing. That's not even chess, that's checkers. But you don't have listen to this, you don't have other people that can talk that way.
It's true. See, no other politician in American history has been a businessman like President Trump. So For early on in my time of assessing conservative principles, free market principles, really, I'm a Milton Friedman free marketeer. Never a fan of tariffs until President Trump came on the scene. And I realized why tariffs are an important, you ready for this? Weapon. So tariffs are not used as an economic driver, which that is a side effect of the tariffs under President Trump. Tariffs are used as a weapon. And I like the idea of using tariffs as a weapon against a country like China. So China puts huge tariffs on us. Why aren't we putting huge tariffs on them? President Trump's ultimate plan is if you want to send product into the United States, build it in the United States. Now, I do believe that President Trump is right. You put 400% or 100% tariffs on many of these goods and services. They'll balk, they'll give up, and they'll get back to what we need to be fair trade. So you can't have free trade without fair trade. And right now, the trade we have with China is not fair at all. All right. So he continues. And this global elitist with Bloomberg doesn't like what Trump has to say.
You're also talking about 20% tariffs on the rest of the world. That is going to have a serious effect on the overall economy. And yes, you're going to find some people who will gain from individual tariffs. The overall effect could be massive in terms of the economy.
I agree it's going to have a massive effect, positive effect. It's going to be a positive, not a negative.
Well,
let me just tell you. No, let me tell you. I know how committed you are to this, and it must be hard for you to, spend 25 years talking about tariffs as being negative and then have somebody explain to you that you're totally wrong. It'll have a negative. It will have. I'll go a step further.
40
if
million,
you don't
40
do
million,
this,
President.
All right, so that is an important moment. Think about where President Trump is right now. He's in Chicago, blue state Illinois, blue city Chicago. And throughout this interview, President Trump is getting standing ovations, getting laughs as he basically gives them the business, as the old referee in the NFL would say. And he does it in such a way that Kamala Harris couldn't do. Remember, Kamala Harris was getting so upset. She lost control of the interview. President Trump in complete control. He's calm. I know this must be difficult for you. You believe something for 25 years to learn that it was all a lie. I know that's hard for you to be told you're wrong. You're not used to it, but you're wrong. Laughs. The laughs tell me President Trump is winning this race. When you're in Chicago and you have the support of all these elitists in this Bloomberg event, how do you lose? Knock on wood, right? Knock on wood. We don't want to get overly confident, but these are good signs.
40 million jobs is a lot of jobs to rely on.
They're all coming back.
Those are 40 million jobs. Those are 40 million jobs in America that rely on trade.
Are you ready? John Deere, great company. They announced about a year ago they're going to build big plants outside of the United States, right? They're going to build them in Mexico.
And you threatened them with tariffs and they stopped.
That's right. I said, if John Deere builds those plants and not selling anything into the United States, they just announced yesterday they're probably not going to build the plants, okay? I kept the jobs here.
All right, so think about why that's important. John Deere making a business decision not to go build tractors in Mexico. President Trump's not president. He's running for president. He was president, but he's not president yet. So John Deere is going to upend, throw in all its corporate plans. Why? Because the executives at John Deere also think President Trump is going to win. And they also know that when President Trump says something, he sticks to his word, unlike Joe Biden, who can make all the threats he wants and never, ever, ever follows through with the threats. That's the difference between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. Donald Trump, you need to fear, man. You really do. And that's a good thing. This conversation continued, and it gets somewhat combative.
Critics say your tariffs will end up being like a national sales tax. Because
the countries
if you have America at the moment has $3 trillion worth of imports, you're going to add tariffs to every single one of them. That is going to push up the cost for all those people who want to buy foreign goods.
Now, what's going
that is
to
just
happen?
simple mathematics, President Trump.
It's not. Yeah, it is, but not the way you figure it. I was always very good at mathematics.
Yes.
Let me tell you, you're saying $3 trillion.
That's $3 trillion worth of imports.
And they don't have to pay. And if, by the way, the higher the tariff, the more likely it is to have them come into the country.
The higher the tariff, the more you're going to put on the value of that piece, those goods, the higher people are going to have to pay in shops.
Ready? The higher the tariff, the more likely it is that the company will come into the United States and build a factory in the United States so it doesn't have to pay the tariff.
That will take many, as you know, that will take many years.
In fact,
all right, so listen. On the surface, the guy's got a point, right? You're going to take a long time before you get them to build a factory up and all of these things. But it has greater effects than that. You put the tariffs on China. Now you got American companies here that are already have the ability to make the products, but aren't because they can't compete. So now they start to make the products, and you have a lot of people flooding the market here in America, rushing to fulfill whatever lapse in the market that we have because of the tariffs. Now, another side effect is forget China moving in and building factories. You're going to have American companies get back into the business of, I don't know, making Kleenex or whatever it is they might make overseas. Latex gloves and hospital supplies and gowns and all this. Wouldn't it be great if we start making those in Mexico again? I think it would. And think about the jobs that would be created here. See, he can only think about the small portion of, well, if you raise a tariff from a good coming in from China, then that'll be passed down to the consumer, which is correct, unless somebody else fills the void. And what this guy is not realizing is somebody else will fill the void. That's the beauty of free markets. I didn't always realize this. I really didn't. Not until President Trump explained it to me the way he's explained it to this guy. And again, didn't you hear? President Trump says we're going to build American factories and American jobs, and the applause in Chicago, applause.
I'll tell you, there's another theory is that the tariff, you make it so high, so horrible, so obnoxious that they'll come right away. When I do the 10%, 10% is really, first of all, 10% when you collect it is hundreds of billions of dollars. The numbers that you're talking, all reducing our deficit. But really, so there's two ways of looking at a tariff. You can do it as a money-making instrument, or you can do it as something to get the companies. Now, if you want the companies to come in, the tariff has to be a lot higher than 10%.
See, President Trump didn't say what I said. I said you use the tariff as a weapon. Some people might call it a tool. I like to be a little stronger with my words. It's a weapon. I'm going to threaten you with a 100% tariff, whether you like it or not, or you change your ways. Now, changing their ways may be reducing or eliminating tariffs on American goods going into China. But we say, okay, that's a fair deal. No tariffs for you, no tariffs for us. Let's increase our output to China, and everybody benefits. Or you go President Trump's way. You put the tariff on. China doesn't want to change its ways. You want to sell goods here, you got to build factories in America. I love it.
Because 10% is not enough. Guys, they're not going to do it for 10. But you make a 50% tariff, they're going to come in. Let me tell you the other thing about tariffs that's great. Our steel companies, as you know, 3-4 years ago, they were all when I was in office, I saw a man from a big steel company, and he was devastated. I knew him for a long time. And it's been a tough business. It was a great business many years ago. And I would not let U.S. steel be sold to Japanese, by the way. It's psychologically, I think it would be.
That's the Nippon steel, as you know.
Yeah, I wouldn't let it be sold. But I would stop it if it hasn't been completed by the time I'm president, because I think it sets a horrible tone. But I had a lot to do with steel. We were going to lose all our steel companies because China, as you remember, was dumping steel at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And I put a 50% tax on that and a tariff on that, all dumped steel. And it was also bad steel. It was what they call dirty steel. It wasn't good steel, which is a bad thing for structural components of buildings and planes and things like that. They were dumping crap into our country. And I put a 50% tariff. I started at 25. I raised it to 50 because the 25 didn't quite do it. I raised it to 50, and that did it. They stopped dumping steel. And I saved our steel mills by having that. We saved it. We saved our steel. Now, what was left, because we've lost so much, but there are certain companies you have to have. There are certain things you have to have. Steel, you have to have. If you go to war, there's a possibility you go to war.
So It's interesting talk about the steel because steel is so important to our economy and building things, including our military. Now, a great question by the American Guerrilla podcast on the Rumble channel. What does Trump do if companies need those materials not available here in America in order to build the products? High tariffs for that on that too. No. And here's the reason why we say no. Because what President Trump does to China with the 100% tariffs, because this is about pushing back against China. Okay? Look at that. My very special lady friend calling me during the podcast. This is about pushing back against China. Not everybody else. So India will fill a void. Vietnam will fill a void. They'll say, oh, wow, well, now he's charging China. We can step in where China was, and we'll send products to America. And guess what? No tariffs on products going to Vietnam. Instead of waging war on us, they'll use the dollar as the reserve currency. They'll make sure that's the standard when they trade. And we'll take products from Vietnam and India and Taiwan and other countries. We'll gladly take their products if we're not making them in the United States. But it also gives an opportunity for American companies to fill the void here. So this is about weaponizing the tariffs against companies that have weaponized them against us. It's a pushback, not against the world, but against our enemies. And I do believe China is an enemy. So I think this, in many respects, incentivizes these other companies that produce cheap goods to produce them and get them to the United States without having to compete with China right now. So that is one thing. Now, finally, it gets just a little more heated, and President Trump is so funny. I had to play this clip for you.
Enormous debt.
What does the Wall Street Journal know? I'm meeting with them tomorrow. What does the Wall Street Journal know? They've been wrong about everything. So have you, by the way. You've been wrong about
You're trying
everything.
to turn this. You're trying to turn this.
You've been wrong about
No, you're trying to turn this into debate. There are
It's
business
not a debate.
people. There
No,
are
but you're
business
wrong.
people.
You've been wrong all your life on this stuff. You've been wrong.
No,
And let me tell you
yes.
about currency. You're going jump in a lot of different subjects. The reserve currency. Let's stick to reserve currency. That's where you started, right? The reserve currency is under threat because you have Iran, you have Russia, you have China. China's the one that you have to worry about because they want it.
Yeah.
They want to have the yuan be the thing of power.
I love that interaction. He totally takes control. This guy doesn't know what to do. That's a commander-in-chief. That's a man who's confident in what he believes in. It's a man who's confident in what his policies and plans are to bring America, back from the brink. Isn't that what you want rather than someone flailing around, blaming everybody else? Every question that guy asked, if they would have asked Kamala Harris, she would have said, well, Trump did this, Trump did this, Trump did this, Trump did that. Just answer the question. What are you going to do to help America? You can agree with the tariff plan or not agree with the plan, but you got to give him props that he's sticking with it and that he believes that it's going to work. Now, you know who else believes it's going to work? Is the guy that I'm fond of this guy. This is Mr. Wonderful, Kevin O'Leary. He says not just 100% tariffs. He says stick it to him.
Kevin, are you a tariff man?
I am actually in the case of China. I don't like tariffs generally, but China we're in an economic war with. There's not 100% that's the case. They don't play by a level playing field. I do business there, so this is not academic study I'm talking about. I've been screwed by the Chinese now for 20 years. I'm just one investor, one player there. They don't allow you to use their IP and protect your IP there. But I'll make a point about one situation that every American knows. Nobody loves TikTok, right? We've declared it Chinese spyware in Congress. January 19th, midnight, it has to be shut down. The Supreme Leader himself is using our court system to sue us in the United States to stop that from happening. Do you think I can do that in China? No. So what I suggest, and listen, this is just for China, I'd like to raise tariffs beyond what Trump is talking about. I'd like to go blowtorch heat on them, 400% on everything, bring them to their knees. In 48 hours, the Supreme Leader will be here in America saying, just kidding about this, let's work it out, because we can't do the same thing that they're doing to us. I can't use their laws to protect my IP. And frankly, I think we should settle this now. We are in an economic war with them. Why don't we just admit it? We tried for so many administrations for 40 years to make peace and say, let's give them democracy. They'll be okay with us. They are screwing us.
It is true. It's why I say China is our greatest threat. There is no doubt about it. They are the one that pose the greatest risk to America. And again, they have their tentacles in everything in this country. You know, President Trump signed an order that says China you couldn't buy chips for our critical infrastructure, our electricity grid, our water plants. They couldn't be used in American infrastructure. Joe Biden, the day he takes office, does away with that order, literally reverses it. Why would you do that? Lo and behold, under Joe Biden, espionage cases from China, spying on U.S. companies has increased through the roof. I just saw an article. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I just saw an article where they're literally going crazy. They can't keep up with the espionage cases from China here in the United States. Explodes under Joe Biden. Why? Because they knew they could get away with it under Joe Biden. All right, folks, you heard my phone ring. One of the great things about my phone is that it is a Patriot Mobile phone. Patriot Mobile is America's only Christian conservative wireless provider. I don't like spending money with companies that don't believe in what I believe in. Why? Because many of those companies, like the big cell phone companies, spend money on woke ideology, DEI initiatives, all the kind of nonsense we're screaming and yelling about every day on this program. Not Patriot Mobile. They're putting up In God We Trust signs in schools across America. They're fighting for our school boards. I just saw they're working with James O'Keefe on one of his documentaries. They sponsor podcasts like this so we can get the message out. This is why I need you to support Patriot Mobile. Go to patriotmobile.com/grant, patriotmobile.com/grant. I know you hear about them all the time. You use the promo code GRANT, you're going to get free activation, you're going to get a great deal, and you're going to know you're part of Stinchfield's army that is also part of the Patriot Mobile army that is growing leaps and bounds because people realize, put your money where your mouth is. That's what Patriot Mobile is doing. So please, stop giving the left money. This is great. You can pick what network you want to be on, so you're not going to lose any service. You could have 2 networks on your phone, 2 lines, 1 phone if you want. PatriotMobile.com/grant. 972-PATRIOT, 972-PATRIOT. You tell them Grant Stinchfield sent you. All right. Lastly, folks, I just wanted to say we are making strides when it comes to raising and blowing the whistle on what happened during COVID. I want you to listen to this Australian senator spell out the problems with COVID and the COVID response. This is on the floor of the Australian Senate, and I thought what this guy had to say was fascinating.
Number of various SAEs by 2024. These adverse events include neurological complications, myocarditis, pericarditis, and thrombosis, end of quote. Thurn said this warns that science should be completely objective when evaluating health risks because social and economic considerations often influence. Why has it taken 3 years for the medical community to find its voice? Firstly, it takes time to do the work to produce a peer-reviewed study, especially one critical of its pharmaceutical industry masters. Secondly, money talks. All that big pharma research money and grants and fake conferences and lavish destinations is a hard influence to overcome. Big pharma money is now going in so many different directions. Like the proverbial boy with his finger in the dike, cracks are finally appearing. That's why the misinformation and disinformation bill has been advanced, to get rid of these embarrassing truths in time for the next pharmaceutical industry fundraiser.
So you see what they're going through? They're going through the same thing we're going through. They want to introduce bills that would do away with, quote, misinformation and disinformation, which there is no such thing. There is just information. Now, there can be lies and there can be truths and there can be opinions. That's it. It is up to you, folks, to decide what you think is truth, what you think's a lie, and what you think is opinion. Now, I would argue that the truth is the truth. All right? The Constitution says the right to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. That is an absolute truth. When I tell you the Constitution says it, it says it. There is no middle ground in that. All right? An opinion would be, I think that Tim Walz is gay. Now, it may be true, but we don't know it's true. He hasn't admitted it, so that's my opinion. He comes off weak. Somebody else might say he comes off strong. I can argue why I'm truth, but you're going to be able to argue that. It's not a hard fact. The bottom line in all this is it is up to you to make your own decision. You take in the information. We don't need bills to combat speech. I don't care if the left goes and spews lies. I would prefer that they don't, but I don't care. I can combat them with the truth. The truth is so powerful of a weapon. It's what we use every day on this program. Thankfully, to Rumble, we're allowed to put it out there. I mean, just running this clip, we're on YouTube right now. It was just like 4 people watching, which is so pathetic. They've got me so shadow banned there. But I'm like, all right, they're going to shut my YouTube channel down if I even mention the C word. It's crazy because this is about a free flow and free exchange of ideas, which, you know, they don't like to do. They don't like the free flow exchange of ideas. So you know what? Just to screw with them, that's what we love to do. I'm going to tell you about my friends over the wellness company, twc.health/Grant. Get your prescription medications, ivermectin in here. They're great. The link is right here in this video, twc.health/Grant. Use the promo code Grant. Got to have those prescription medications on hand. I promise you're going to love it. All right, folks, that's going to do it for us today. Please sign up for my email. That's how I get in touch with you. I'm doing a much better job of getting these emails out every day so you know when the podcasts drop. You get a direct link. You can share them with friends so they'll be able to watch the podcast. It's all about spreading this word. GrantStinchfield.com, GrantStinchfield.com. Stinchfield 1776 on all the social media platforms. So please follow me there. Instagram, Twitter. Follow me. Like the Rumble channel. Subscribe to the Rumble channel. All of these things. Help build the momentum. And don't forget, it is not my show. It is our show. This is Stinchfield's Army. We just run Stinchfield's Army. I am your voice, and it's the most humbling thing possible. It really is. So take what we got here. Take it to the streets. Let's go win this thing. All right. I will see you on the Real America's Voice show tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern time. Should be great. As always, Stinchfield's Army rolls.